Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Digital Fundamentals webinar. My name is Alyssa Fader. I am the training director here at Emily's List, and I'm really, oh, sorry, can you guys not hear me? I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay, my sound is on. Sorry about that. All right, I'll start over for the folks who are having some sound troubles. So hello again. My name is Alyssa Fader. I am the training director here at Emily's List, and I'm really excited to be with you today on today's Digital Fundamentals webinar. We are going to be walking you through all of the basics that you need to have in your digital program, as well as making sure that you are updated on how you can use your digital tools right now with everything that's going on. So we know that there's a lot happening right now. People are undergoing a lot of changes and a lot of stress, and we really appreciate you all taking the time to learn with us today. So I want to give you a little bit of background on what Emily's List is, for those of you who are new. We are the largest resource for women in politics. We help recruit and train pro-choice Democratic women to run for office at all levels of government. And since our founding in 1985, we've helped elect over 100 women to the House, 26 to the Senate, 16 governors, and nearly 1,100 women to state and local office. We've also had over 50,000 women reach out to us and say that they're ready to run for office, including all of you. So thank you all for joining us. And the training team that I am a part of here at Emily's List exists to make sure that you all have the resources that you need to have a successful run for office. As part of that, we build these kinds of webinars as well as other types of trainings in collaboration with a bunch of different departments here, including the digital department, who helps us on all of our webinars. And so today, I'm extremely excited for us to work even more closely with the digital team and run this digital fundamentals training. So in order to do that, I'm going to turn our session over to Olivia, who is our digital organizing director, and she's going to walk through this webinar with you. So I'll be back in a little bit to ask some audience questions. And in the meanwhile, Olivia Noble, digital organizing director.
Hey everybody. I'm Olivia Noble. I'm the Digital Organizing Director here at Emily's List. So I'm going to take you through these slides, and I think we can just go ahead and get started. So we're here to talk about digital. As Alyssa said, just wanted to, again, reiterate sort of what Emily's List is and what we do. Really here to support women, and I'm so excited that you're all on this webinar with us. So to go through the agenda, we're going to talk through some housekeeping announcements, go through why digital is important, what it can do for your campaign. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking through email best practices, and then we'll have time for a question and answer break. Throughout the webinar, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box in your webinar tool panel, and we will get to them when we can. Then we're going to talk about social media and digital organizing best practices, and then we'll have time for another question and answer break at the end. So first, let's hear from you. What are some digital challenges or concerns that you're facing in your campaign or in a campaign you support right now? So if you can type those into the chat box, that would be great. And then, as Alyssa said, she'll be coming back and we'll ask some of the questions later on. I'm like literally gonna wait until you type a few things in. Yeah. Okay. I'm hearing it's hard to fundraise right now. A lot of people are feeling sort of unsure about digital. Yeah, exactly. So that's great. Hopefully we can answer a lot of your questions later on, and hopefully some of them are answered by the webinar itself. So keep going and keep typing them in, and we'll get to them when we can. So I want to go through some webinar norms. First, I just ask that everyone invest in our time together. We'll take 2 formal question and answer breaks. And then I also wanted to say that all questions are valid. I know this is a really stressful time. Lots of people are really turning to digital that haven't spent a lot of time in digital before. So feel free to ask anything. And again, type them into the text box in your webinar toolbar. And finally, I would just ask, these slides are internal. Please use them to support your campaign and campaigns that you're helping out, but just keep them internal. Great. All right, so now we're going to talk through some webinar goals. First, hopefully by the end of this, you'll understand why digital is an important component in your campaign. You'll learn how to scale your digital program to meet your campaign's needs. You'll learn how to plan for and create content that moves people to take action on your campaign. And finally, we're going to develop some of the digital basics that will allow for digital to be a key tool for your campaign at this time. Great. So why is digital important? Lots of you probably already know, but I'd love to just really talk about what digital can offer your campaign. So right now, we're all trying to figure out how we can do all of our work digitally, and I'm here to tell you that you want to connect with voters, hold a town hall, organize volunteers, fundraise, all of these things can be done digitally, and these platforms are capable of doing all of this work. So I'm really excited to talk through how each of these things can be done all in a digital and online landscape. So first, what is digital? Digital social media, website, email, fundraising, it's all of these things. And I like to say that digital is sort of everything your campaign already does, just online. It's the internet department. But the nice thing about it is that it's already doing all of this work that the rest of your campaign is doing. So transitioning it, some in-person events into online events or into your digital program won't be as hard as it might seem. So when you think about your digital strategy, the first question to ask is, what are your campaign goals? This is a really stressful time and lots of things are changing, but the things that aren't changing are that your goals are still the same. You still need to earn votes, you still need to fundraise, you still need to get volunteers and organize your community. Those things are all still true. And so every time we're talking about a piece of your digital program, you sort of want to think back to, is this serving one of my campaign goals? Is it raising money? Is it convincing someone to vote for me? So always think about and relate your program back to your overall campaign goals. We'll talk about this a lot, but having a plan and writing it down is really important to building an effective digital program. Make sure that you have calendars, that you're thinking ahead, so that you're not just writing stuff in the moment and trying to get it out, but that you're really thinking through a comprehensive program. And finally, what's I would say most important about all of this is making sure that there's someone out there who's accountable for digital. If you have all these great plans, but you don't have someone specific who's going to be putting your plans into action, it's going to be really easy for digital to sort of fall by the wayside. So making sure you find someone, whether it's a trusted volunteer or a staff person who's really going to sort of own your digital program and make sure they understand how it all works, is going to be really important. Great. So every time I talk about digital, I talk about what are the resources you have to make your digital program happen. So you have people, you have time, money. Do you have the people to run your program effectively? Do you have the time? Are you allocating enough time to make sure that your program can reach the people it needs to? And money, are you willing to invest in your digital program with money, or is this a program you're trying to run on a lower budget campaign? So really, every time you think about, oh, it would be really great to get up on this new social media platform, that sounds really fun, but do you have the people to make sure that your program, that your platform is going to be successful? Do you have the time to create content to build up your program? And if you don't have those things, maybe it's not worth investing in that new social media platform. So digital can offer a lot of things. I like to say it offers the 3 M's: money, message, and mobilization. So it can fundraise, it can communicate with voters, communicate with supporters, mobilize your community. It can get people, volunteers, to take action, whether that's something as small as retweeting your campaign posts, or something as big as hosting virtual events, hosting fundraisers, supporting your campaign in a different way. So for a little bit of an overview, a good program is a mix of interesting plan content and the ability to jump in big moments. So when I say, when I think of digital, I think sometimes people think it's very in the moment, especially Twitter. It feels very, if you're not on top of the latest conversation, you're sort of behind. And that's definitely true sometimes, but a lot of digital is planned stuff. And when I think about the Emily's List program, for example, we spend a lot of time planning ahead and drafting content in advance so that we do have the flexibility to jump during those big moments. So I think that's something important to think about, which also gets back to the content calendar and making sure you're planning ahead. Secondly, you really want to make sure your program reflects the audience that you're talking to. If you're talking to your supporters, speak to them in a way that isn't sort of overly formal press release, the kind of conversation that you would have when you're just talking to the media, for example. A lot of times people on digital get a little overly formal. And I think that one of the things we say is sort of sound like a human. People look at the way that everyone else is speaking on social media and sort of reflect the voice of the candidate and the voice of the campaign. And finally, digital is really a space to be creative. This is a space, especially today and right now, digital can help connect you with your supporters and donors when you can't meet in person. And I will just say in the past week, I have seen incredible creativity on social media. I've seen people hosting all kinds of interesting virtual events and trying out new things. So I think this is really a time to be creative and see what works and just be willing to try new things. Great. And so a little bit of a note on our current environment. I know that lots of you are really thinking about digital and trying to figure out how to make all of what you do on your campaign an online experience. But the first thing I'll say is just that this isn't a time where you really need to reinvent the wheel. This is really a time to fall back on best practices and just make sure you're doing the best you possibly can on these platforms, which I think is positive. It means, we don't have to overthink or start from scratch. We just have to sort of invest more in a place where we might not have invested a ton of time and energy before. So like I said, this is really a moment to focus on your digital program and make sure you're doing the most with it. And I'll say that this training is really about how to make sure your campaign is in the right place digitally so you can continue to be successful during this crisis. And we'll answer more questions as they come up. I can see a lot of you are asking questions, which is great. So just keep posting them, and we will get to them after the next section. So, and I'm just keeping an eye on the questions that are coming in. So if I look over here, that's what's happening. So when we talk through the components of a digital program, these are sort of the must-haves that I will say. So you have to have a website, and we'll talk a little bit about the must-haves that need to be on your website. But if you're a candidate, you need a website. You need an email list, a list of supporters that you can reach out to. You need a way to collect donations online. And I would say most campaigns should be up on Facebook and Twitter, and probably only Facebook and Twitter for the most part. So to talk a little bit about your website. So this introduces the candidate and the things they care about to voters. It is sort of your front page of the internet. So make sure that it is really selling you as a candidate and that it's clear and concise. I would say it should be very simple with nice pictures, but it needs to include your full name and what you're running for. You would be shocked how many campaign websites I have looked at that do not have the candidate's full name or that don't have what district or what office they are running for. If people can't find that information, that's a problem. So just make sure it has all of that information on your website. I would say there should be a very prominent donate button. Often it's in a different color, in a prominent space on the front page of your website. And then it should also include an ask to join your email list. Lots of people want to know, well, should I have like an issues page? Should I have all this other stuff on my website? And those are sort of nice to haves. It's nice to be able to talk about your campaign, but I would say if you have these things, that's enough. And if you have time and energy and you want to add all of these other pages, that's great. But this is what you absolutely must have on your campaign website. Oh, great. Okay, sorry. So this is an example of a good website, January Contreras for Attorney General. So you'll see it's a nice photo. There's a really clear call to action on with the sign up link. And there's also several places on the front page of the website where you can donate to her campaign. You'll also see that this is really simple. There's not a lot of other text going on. It doesn't sort of cloud the main asks, which is sign up for the email list and donate. But you just want to make sure that anyone who comes to your website, you're doing your very best job to capture them and retain them on your list so that you can follow up with them more. So the more information you put on, the more clouded your site can get. So it's really nice for it to be clean and simple. Great. All right, so now we're going to talk through some best practices for email strategy. All right, so when we talk about email strategy, I would say that your program could include emails on fundraising, advocacy, event building, e-commerce, which is if you have a store and you're selling merch, or like get out the vote, other type of deadline-based information. You want to make sure that everyone who's interested in your campaign ends up on your list. So like I was saying on the website, make sure that there's a clear way for people who are interested in your campaign to hear more back from you. And in a world where we're doing more in-person events, this is the sort of situation where anyone who walked in the door, you would want to make sure you collect their information, that you add them to the list, that it doesn't end up on a bunch of clipboards that stay in the trunk of your car that never get uploaded into your data system. That there's always a system of keeping people's information into your list so that you can follow up with them and make sure they stay in your community. The other thing I will say, every email should have one clear ask. If you notice, and something I like to do with email strategy is I'm on a million different email programs, and I'll read through and just see what other people are doing. And I think that's a good way to sort of learn best practices and see what other people are doing in the space. But often I'll see people try to put multiple asks into an email, donate or volunteer or spread the news to your friends or follow us on Facebook. And I'll say that the more asks you add to an email, the easier it is to dilute the message and have fewer people take any actions. So I'm going to talk about that in again a second, but one clear ask. And finally, like I said before, you should have a content calendar. That'll help you plan ahead. It'll help you draft content in advance and just give you a sense of direction for your program. And I'll say that this can be as complicated or simple as you need it to be. We use Google Sheets, but it should really have what the content is, who's owning that content, and when you're planning on posting it. But having a content calendar will help plan ahead and help you sort of get a sense of confidence about your program. And I'll also say, take a look at the months ahead and map out, okay, we know our primary is here, so we'll need to do GOTV emails the day before or the morning of. And we have an FEC filing deadline, so maybe we'll do a fundraising push around that. And it's the candidate's birthday, so let's do a happy birthday to the candidate post or email. There's a lot of, if you look ahead, there's a lot of places where you can put in markers for when you're going to need to put content out, and then you can sort of fill in the gaps with other things. So your emails should tell stories, they should reflect the voice of the sender, drive home the stakes, and have one clear ask. Once again, they should have one ask. And we actually did a training on telling your personal story recently. And I think a lot of the lessons learned from that translate into your email program. Sometimes I'll see emails that say, hey, we were out at, this is X campaign. We were out at this event and it was so great, and 50 people came, and it was really fun. Which is just sort of a more like dry update. But you really want to think about the same way that stories are the best way to convince people in person, your personal story, as to why you should be the candidate for them. Your email should also tell stories, because that's the most impactful way you can talk to somebody. You also want to make sure they reflect the voice of the sender. If your emails are coming from the candidate, they should sound like they're coming from the candidate. So spend a little time thinking about, okay, how would the candidate talk about this issue, and try to write it in that style so it doesn't come off as overly dry or formal. You also really want to drive home the stakes. I will say you have to think about the broader landscape that your email is appearing in. Most people get, hundreds of emails a day, or however many emails you get a day. So you have to think about the space that you're competing in. And even though this person might like you, they've signed up, they're interested in your campaign, why should they take action today on the thing that you're asking them to do? You still have to really make it feel impactful and important that they take this action. And once again, having one clear ask helps make sure that people understand why you're asking them to do it and what your campaign stands to benefit if they take this action. So we're gonna talk through a little bit of the structure of an email. So this is an Emily's List email we sent a while ago. So I'm just gonna read it because I know it's kind of small. So, hi there. After 2 years of the Trump administration, we've come to expect attacks on the right to choose. And sure enough, during his State of the Union address last night, Trump made it crystal clear he still plans to roll back reproductive rights. That's why we're as determined as ever to elect pro-choice Democratic women at every level of government across the country. But our success depends on everyone in this community coming together to support our women. Please take the time to donate and become a 2019 member. You'll be a part of the team working to elect pro-choice Democratic women who will fight back against Trump's anti-choice agenda. So that's just that top section. So you'll see there was an attention-grabbing lead of Trump and expecting attacks on the right to choose. There's a moment in this story. So the moment is the State of the Union address where Trump talked about rolling back reproductive rights. There's a theory of change. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about theory of change, but sort of why this is a problem that Trump is attacking reproductive rights. How can the reader do something about that problem? So the way the reader can do something about it is by taking the time to donate and becoming a 2019 member to support pro-choice Democratic women who will fight back. So really try to present a problem and then present a solution that the person can have a sense of ownership over. Often people will have more detail about what's happening and really drive home that one ask. This ask is become a member. So to talk a little bit more of theory of change, I use this phrase all the time, but it's really important to think about this cause and effect sequence. It begins with something the supporter can meaningfully do and ends with this resolution. So you want to make sure that every time you're asking your supporters to do something, that you're giving them a reason why what they're doing will help resolve the problem that they're being presented with. So this is another Emily's List email we sent. So, hi there, Republicans love to attack abortion rights when they think no one is looking. Right now, anti-choice legislation is rapidly moving through state legislatures around the country, and it's some of the worst of the worst. That's why we have to make sure we don't spend this year sitting on the sidelines. We need to fight back against these Republican attacks, and you know the best way to do that? By electing more pro-choice Democratic women. Pitch in now to help get it done. So once again, we've presented a problem, this problem being anti-choice legislation, and the solution is electing more pro-choice Democratic women. So the person feels a specific sense of ownership that my donation goes towards solving this problem. We're not just presenting a problem and saying, okay, now give to me. It's really making that connection between the problem and the solution and the person and how they can be a part of that solution. This is also true of anything that you write, not just email. I think about this a lot with social media too. Just making sure that there's a real call to action that connects to the problem. So a couple of pro tips, have a welcome series to your email. So this makes sure that anyone who signs up to your list doesn't just sort of get thrown into whatever email you're sending today, but that they are getting sort of a nice welcome to who you are as a candidate, that they are getting pushed to other parts of your campaign, like follow us on social media, take this survey, give again, in a more rapid way. So if you think about someone who signs up, if they don't hear from you for 5 or 6 days, they probably aren't going to remember who you are unless they're like your best friend. But say someone just sort of passively finds you, signs up, and then 6 days later they get an email saying, hey, welcome. They might say, I don't remember, did I sign up for this? 6 days was like 12 years ago in this current world, so I can't remember anything. So make sure that you're onboarding new members within 48 hours, and that you're giving them sort of this nice ladder into your campaign. Following us on social is a really nice first ask because it sort of loops them into other places where your campaign can stay in contact with them. And also it's like sort of an easier, lighter ask to get them to take before you ask them to do a higher level thing. Great. I think that, oh, and then often we'll get questions about how you measure success on your email program. So I'd say the first thing is to monitor your open rates to make sure your emails are actually reaching people. If you notice really low open rates, or you're sort of paying attention and all of a sudden they drop, something might be going on in your email program. But if they're just kind of low, it might be that your subject lines aren't interesting enough to get someone to open it. Try to make your subject lines sort of attention grabbing and a hook that brings people in, that makes them want to read more. And so keep an eye on those. Sometimes people measure all of their success based on open rates. And I would say, don't do that. Watch your action rates. Action rates are where I measure success. So if your email is asking someone to donate and 1,000,000 people open it, but nobody donates, it's an unsuccessful email. Even though 1,000,000 people opened it, like that's awesome, but the goal of your email was to get people to donate. So really, and that's true of whatever your action is that you're trying to get someone to do, whether it's like clicking the link or driving volunteers to an event or fundraising, that should really be your marker of success for an email. And one thing I would say is consider testing subject lines. If you have more time, you can sort of build out more advanced testing programs. But I'd say the first thing is just trying out different subject lines. If you have the ability to maybe split your list in half randomly and send 2 different subject lines and see which one performs better in terms of the action rate that you're asking people to take, that can help inform future emails. And we can send more about testing later on, but I would say testing subject lines is one of the best ways just to help increase that open rate so that your emails are reaching more people. Great. All right, so now I think Alyssa's going to come back and ask some questions that you all have been asking.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you guys for all of your questions. They are very helpful and help us know what it is that you guys really want to learn about. So our first question is, what are some common mistakes you see candidates making online that I should learn from and avoid?
I would say, that's a great question. Actually going to take a I would say a lot of times I see people sounding really formal, and they're just not really reflecting the campaign that they're running in person on their digital platforms. So, you know, we'll talk a lot about this idea of craft content for the medium. So if you have a press release that you send out to reporters that talks about your position on a new bill that's coming out, you know, sometimes I'll see people just post that press release to Twitter and break it up into 5 or 6 tweets in a thread. And that's not really how Twitter works, right? You want to sound more like a human, and people just aren't really crafting it for the medium itself. So take a moment to take that content, and you can totally reuse it across your platforms, but take a moment to sort of think through what makes sense for the platform and how might I sort of reformat this to appear more natural on the platform. The other thing I'll say, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in the social media section, is that I see a lot of candidates that that kind of only do one thing on social media, like on their Facebook. They only ever post pictures of events that they do. And that's great. I'm really glad that they're posting pictures, but there's a lot more you can talk about, and you're sort of pigeonholing yourself into only one type of thing. So trying to vary it up and just sound like a human are like some of my 2 most important things when people are starting to get used to their digital programs.
Awesome. Another question, I'm running for state rep. Should I be buying ads online?
That's a great question. I would say that, and actually we're going to have a training on digital ads coming up. So we will send out, I don't think we have it scheduled yet, but we will send out notifications once it is. So that's really great for you to sign up for that. I would say you're running for state rep, I would have Google search ads. So those are ads that if someone Googles your name, that it'll show up, your website will be one of the first things to appear. So that just helps make sure that if someone's really looking specifically for you, that they'll find you, and that your website doesn't sort of fall down to like the second page of Google, which we all know is like nowhere. And then I would consider looking at more digital ads, but we'll have more on that soon. I'll also say that we're working on some new lessons for our training center, which I'll plug at the end of this, including one on digital ads that will help get a little bit more into the weeds on ads.
Awesome. And I think the last question is if you can speak to the kinds of audiences that are online. There's some concern about how to reach folks who may be older or don't have as much access to the internet. If you can talk a little bit about who's online and how to reach them.
Yeah, definitely. I will say that I think that I haven't looked at the numbers in a while, but I think that there are maybe 60% of Americans are on Facebook, maybe even higher, maybe like 70%. Um, Actually, I think it's like 80. Anyway, there's like a huge percentage of Americans are on Facebook. And so I really think of Facebook as if you're going to have one social media platform, be on Facebook. Even if you have lots of feelings about Facebook, it is where people are. And it's where a lot of older people are. You'd be surprised how many, the age diversity of social media, and how many people you would be able to reach if you're on those platforms. And we'll talk a little bit more about the platforms and the different types of strengths that they have later on. But I will say that lots of people are on social media, and lots of people get their news and their information primarily from social media. So that's really where they're looking for to capture like what's going on in the world around them, and even probably more so right now. So that's it's really important to be up on those, and you'd be surprised who you can find. As for people that aren't on those platforms, you might have to be more creative in thinking about how you reach them. Maybe that's with text messaging programs, which we'll talk about in a future webinar, or like phone banks. But there are a lot of people on social media, and if you're running a good program, you can probably reach them.
Great. All right, that's all for now. And I will be back later, and you just want to maximize the training again.
Amazing. Thank you, Alyssa. All right. So now we're going to talk about social media. All right. So social media. Oh, this is great. This is just what I was talking about. So we're going to sort of break down the different platforms, and talk about their relative strengths. So as I said, on Facebook, one of the largest strengths of Facebook is traffic, is that there are a huge percentage of people. Great, sorry, I was just making sure you all can see the presentation. So Facebook has a huge number of people on it. It has a huge, especially across a lot of different factors, there's just a ton of people on Facebook. So as I said before, if you're going to have one social media platform, be on Facebook. Twitter, lots of people think, should I be on Twitter? I would say Twitter's probably, actually, I don't know if this is technically true, but Twitter is probably one of the most important, one of the larger platforms to be on, but its strength is really in influencers and in media engagement. So making sure that you are reaching key people in your community, that you are talking to reporters, that is really where Twitter's strengths lie. And then Instagram, if you are looking for a third platform, I would say Instagram, but I would really make sure you feel confident that you are running solid programs on Facebook and Twitter and email before you move on to Instagram. Instagram strengths are visual. There are lots of millennials on Instagram. But again, when you're thinking about different platforms, you want to ask yourself that question, do I have the people, time, or money to make this platform successful? So each time you add a new platform, it's not, people aren't just going to flock to you and the content isn't just going to be there. You have to spend a lot of time building an audience, thinking through the content. So it's a lot to take on a new platform. So just make sure that you are sort of balancing the people, time, and money of it to make sure you can be successful. So here's some examples. Michelle Wu, Danica Rome. Danica Rome has an amazing Twitter account. Actually, all of her social media is really well done, so I recommend checking her out. And then I think we have Instagram. Great, and then Abby Finkenauer. So, and you can see Abby has a lot of different pictures of events. If you, once again, if you have the time, Instagram can be really nice, but you really want to make sure that you have the capacity to take it on. So now we're going to talk a little bit about social media strategy. So the most effective social media strategy, social media accounts are visual. Social media is very visual, pictures, videos, memes, and it engages people. I think that sort of an older idea about digital and social media in particular was that it was just another way to get your press release out there. But social media is about making connections. It's about talking to other people. And so the best social media is social media that connects people, that's more of a two-way street and less of just another place to blast out a message. I've said this several times now, but clearly I care about it because I put it on a bullet point. So just really don't post press releases or talking points. You can still reformat that material, but try to make it more native to the platform itself. You want to lift up your wins. So if you have a really great event, if you get an endorsement, make sure to post about it. This is a really great opportunity to think through every time you have a win on your campaign, how can I communicate about this on social media? I would say respond to comments. There used to be this sort of rule in social media, like don't respond to comments. But I don't think that's true. I think respond to comments, even if people say, hey, you're such a great candidate, thanks so much for everything you do. If you can just respond, thanks, like arm emoji, that really helps them feel connected to you. And it probably took 5 seconds out of your day. But for them, it has such an impact. So if you have the time, or if a trusted staff member or volunteer has the time to really go through and just like things and give really easy responses, I think that can make social media really, again, feel engaging and like a conversation, and less of just another sort of place to communicate. As I said before, really try to tailor your content to the medium. And I will also say that if you build a new platform, you have to use it. So make sure that you are prepared to take on the challenge of a new platform if you decide to accept it, because you don't want to have a Twitter account that just posts like every month or that hasn't posted in 6 months. Make sure that you're keeping things up to date. Great. Okay, so back to this idea of a content calendar. I would say it's very important to have a calendar. And I would say one person who is not the candidate should be controlling that calendar and thinking through what should go out on your platforms. I like to think of, when I'm thinking about building a content calendar, is thinking through buckets of content that I want to be talking about on my campaign. So I think one clear bucket is deadlines. So my primary, FEC deadlines, GOTV, when my election day is, all these different sort of campaign process deadlines that you can post content about. So that's one bucket. There's also sort of a personal story bucket. So if you are a teacher running for office and I don't see anything on your social media platform about being a teacher, there's probably a bucket of content that you're missing that you could be posting about. So talking about stories from being a teacher and how that's informing your campaign, throwback posts to you as a teacher your first year, but just thinking through, again, that personal story element. Often, actually, this is another thing that I see candidates do sometimes, is often they totally neglect that personal story piece of it in favor of really just only posting about the campaign, but continue to share that story of why you're in this race, why people should support you, why you are particularly well positioned to lead your community. But that's a piece I often don't see people do too much of. So really think through all of these buckets. And then as you're building out your content calendar, look back at those buckets and say, oh, have I talked about each of these things? Maybe I could slot in a post about being a teacher next week. But having that all written out helps sort of get your brain around the type of content you should be posting. So here's some other ideas. Campaign updates, especially in this time, just posting like about community resources, trusted information. That's going to be really huge for the next couple of months. in terms of really emulating the kind of leader that your community needs, and really demonstrating to people, hey, I want you to elect me because X, Y, and Z. So I'm just gonna go ahead and be that leader right now, and I'm gonna point you to all of these resources. Think through, articles about your campaign, photos, videos, but really try to vary it up. And if you have those content buckets written down, it really helps you realize when you're only doing one thing too much. So using your accounts, have a dedicated social media email account and secure passwords. Make sure this really helps keep your campaign life and your personal life separate, so that if you have a staff person who is going to log into your Twitter account, it's not tied to your personal email account. And it helps just sort of keep everything in one place. Especially, if in 2 years you decide to run for something else and you don't remember any of your passwords, you know where that password reset email is going to. Another really important thing, clean up your personal accounts and keep them separate from your campaign accounts. Sometimes we'll hear people say, hey, should I just repurpose my personal account and make it into a Facebook page? And I would say, definitely not. I would keep them separate, and I might, what I would do is I would create an Olivia page, and then I would on my personal page say, hey, I'm running for office, and I'm friends with all of you, and I think it's really important that you see what I'm doing, so go over there. And that helps keep those pages separate. On the subject of cleaning up your personal accounts, I think this is actually a really great thing for those of you who are on this webinar that are not running for office yet, that are just sort of thinking about it and trying to get your life in a place to run, is start doing this now. It can take a little bit of time, but go through your accounts. Don't like scrub all personality out of your accounts, but do think, is this representative of the kind of campaign I want to run, of the person that I am? And then if it doesn't feel right, you can just delete it. And again, we're actually also going to post a lesson on the training center about cleaning up your social media accounts. That'll help get into a little bit more of the details of all of the places that you're probably forgetting about that you should think about cleaning up. And finally, handles and pages should include your name. Something I would also suggest is trying not to make your pages time bound. So I might not say Jessica for Texas 2020, because if you run in 2022, you're gonna have to change everything. But do try to make it about you and about the office that you're running for. Again, back to the point I made about email, you should make it very clear who you are and what you're running for. And I also, I meant to say this earlier, let's go back to this slide about the platforms. Maybe not. What I would say about the different platforms, often I'll get the question of, oh, what should I post and how often should I post? I would say on Facebook, and this is totally dependent on your campaign. I'll put it out there also, and how much time you have. But if you're looking for some general guidelines, I might say 1 to 2 Facebook posts a day and maybe 5 or 6 tweets. But again, if you are a really active candidate on Twitter, you might post 20 tweets, or you might post 2. And it gets back to that, if you build it, you have to use it. And you have to make sure that you have a dedicated person who's building that for you. But if you have the capacity, that's sort of rough guidelines I might think about. And then you can sort of build from there. Great. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about digital organizing. So this is probably a place where we have the most questions right now, just because lots of us are trying to figure out how are we going to run our organizing programs that are typically very in-person type experiences online. And I'm here to tell you there's this great thing called digital organizing that can really help make that transition for your campaign that we already advise people to do without this whole situation that we're in. So what is digital organizing? When we talk about digital organizing, we're talking about using digital tools to move people to take political action. So I say this phrase a lot, we're meeting people where they are. And even in an environment where people, that's very different than the one we live in now, people still spend a lot of time on social media. And if we're not trying to organize them there, we're missing out on a huge opportunity that we're only organizing people in person. We're missing out on this whole other part of their life. So, if you think about how much time you personally spend online, think about all of the time that other people are and take advantage of that opportunity. So what we're talking about is using digital tools to build a base of people, teach skills, and build relationships. And I like to think that it's really about doing everything you're already doing in your campaign, but just doing it online, especially when we talk about sort of field and events. So if you organize your community to have coffee or drop-ins with the candidate at the library, maybe you have office hours or a virtual event online that does that. Or maybe you have a Facebook group for your supporters where they can connect with one another. We have a lot of fun in our Run to Win Facebook group that will also be in our follow-up email after this. But it's a great community of people coming together, and especially right now when we really need online communities to be supporting one another, that could be a really interesting idea. But I like to think that it really bridges this online to offline experience. So we're talking about, hey, person who's supporting me on the internet, how can I get you to show up at an event or support the campaign or organize your family and your community to support me? So digital organizing also uses a lot of this concept of ladder of engagement. So this idea says, if someone comes into your email list and they just found you and they're sort of interested, so they sign up, and then the first ask that they hear from you is, hey, can you host a virtual event fundraiser with 100 supporters and raise me $5,000? They're probably like, who are you? I just signed up. I just said I'm interested. I'm not ready for that. So it's really thinking, how do you get supporters from being a passive email list subscriber to that person that you need to be that super volunteer? So instead of just asking them to be the super volunteer, giving them sort of escalating asks that get them to a place where they're ready to say yes to that bigger ask. So thinking about, if someone just signed up, maybe you ask them to sign a card for the candidate, or hey, can you retweet the candidate's tweet today? That's a really low bar ask, especially for people that have already done some higher level of ask. Just asking them to share and support you on social media is a huge benefit to the campaign. And also, especially if someone like comes to an in-person event for 3 hours, like, they're probably going to tweet about you. You just need to ask them. So always be thinking about the next thing that you can ask your supporters to do, and don't sort of say thanks and follow up 3 weeks later when you have another ask. Always be thinking about sort of keeping them on this ladder. And now we have a demonstration of the ladder. So making sure to think through all of those steps, and that you're always asking people, hey, now that you've shared our event, can you tag 3 more friends? One of the very best things I saw on Facebook last cycle was a campaign manager for a candidate that I'm friends with posted a picture of the candidate and was talking about how excited she was to be working with her, and I liked it. And then an hour later, I got a notification on Facebook that she had tagged me in a comment and said, hey, I saw you liked this, but I noticed you haven't given to the candidate yet. Hey, can you give $5 to sort of follow through on that like? And she had called out like 10 other people. And I was like, this is so smart. Because yes, I just sort of passively scrolled by and I was like, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for doing that work. But she really took that to the next level and thought, hey, how can I level up this very passive interaction and sort of bring this person to the next level? I've also seen people do that with events. Actually, we'll talk about that in a second. So one of the first things that I say is, even when all of our events aren't online, is to use your platforms to advertise your events. So make sure that you aren't just talking about your election day, or that you're not just talking about what the candidate is doing, but that you're, again, thinking of social media as this community, this engagement moment, to tell people, hey, we're going to be out in the community and knocking doors. Or right now, hey, we're going to be doing a volunteer phone bank. Every event you do, whether or not it is an in-person or online event, should have an online Facebook invitation. For a couple of reasons. One, it sort of shows people what you're doing, shows them ways that they can get involved. But two, Facebook does a lot of that, reminding people, giving them notifications in advance so that you don't have to do quite as much chasing of your supporters. So there's a couple of nice features, but you can also say, hey, invite 3 friends now that you've signed up. And they can go ahead and invite their friends. So there's a lot of built-in functions in Facebook that make it worthwhile doing that. And even if you only have a couple of people signed up, it's still valuable just to show people you're out in the community, you're doing things, you're taking action, and they can get involved. Sounds like a first thing. I would also say, I was saying this before, encourage your supporters to engage online, whether this is a candidate advertising an event. I think you can also just say, hey, dedicated supporters, I put out a call to action to get our governor to take action on X new policy that we need in place. Can you retweet my ask to help amplify our demands? And so, don't be afraid to ask your supporters to take action, because that's one of the lowest hanging fruit actions out there. People are looking for something to do right now. They want to have a meaningful action they can do to help their community and help the world. And if you can give them an action that, again, ties into the problem that they're being presented with, they will jump on that opportunity. So I think of this as one of the earliest steps of just encouraging people to get involved. And then once they're more comfortable with talking about the campaign, you can start to sort of level them up and get them to do more for your campaign. Again, events. So there's more sort of traditional in-person events like this one with Sabrina. But like, surprise, you're at a digital event right now. There's a lot that you can do with events to get people not just to show up in the room, but then to talk to all of their friends about what they did, post about being at the event, get people to take pictures of them doing a remote phone banks and post them online and say, hey, I'm making calls for Sabrina today. Can you join me next time? We'll have a Google Hangout and do it together, and it'll be really fun. Another really cool tactic I saw someone do on events was they posted a picture of their event on Facebook, and they tagged everyone that attended that they could find. And then they asked all of those people, hey, thanks so much for attending. Wanted you to see this picture. So one, it's a nice little follow-up, makes people feel like, remember in high school when you all like searched through the yearbook to find all the pictures that you were in? It's like, oh, they get to feel like you valued them. You are posting about them. They're seeing that their contribution mattered. So one, it's a nice little follow-up, thank you. And then you can also say, hey, next time, can you invite 2 friends? Tag them in the comments so that we can follow up with them. So little things like that, again, remember, we thank them for their contribution, and then we always follow up with another ask. The other thing I would say in a normal campaign is that we're integrating our field work. So again, talk about what you're doing online, encourage your supporters to post about it, and really just this is an example also of a text, but really just try to find all of the ways that what you're already doing on your campaign, communicate about that and reflect that in your digital program. So, and we will also have a separate training about texting, as a lot of you are asking the question of how can I continue to do my door knocking type work when I can't knock on people's doors. So we'll have a whole separate training that can go into the weeds on how peer-to-peer texting works, so you feel confident in your program. But that's definitely something to look into right now in terms of translating that work that you're doing in normal campaigns in a door-to-door knocking, making phone calls kind of way into a more of an online experience. Great. So now we're gonna answer some questions. I realize we only have a couple minutes left, but we'll try to get to as many as we can.
Hello, everybody. Yep, sorry. Hello. Thank you, Olivia. So we have a great comment, which I think will lead into a question. The comment is from someone who says, I am the campaign manager for a candidate. As we can't do door knocking right now, we've been doing daily stories with varied topics about stances, backstory, etc., and it seems to be going okay. The end of this question, this comment is, what kind of digital events would you suggest to expand on this? And there was also a question from another Olivia asking what creative asks you, or creative digital posts you've seen to have people kind of interact with the campaign more. So I both wanted to share that comment and also ask you, what are some creative ideas that you have for folks as they're campaigning online right now?
Yeah, I love that. One thing I would suggest is thinking about who like the most impactful person that can make an impact on you is probably not just like a random organizer in your community. Like if I don't know anything about the election, and someone just random person knocks on my door to talk about a candidate, that's a really great interaction. But probably the best interaction is if like my best friend called me and said, hey, I just working really hard with this campaign and I think it's really cool and I think you would want to check it out. Like that's by far the most impactful thing that can change my mind. And that's something that can totally happen online. And so I think asking people to organize their friends and family and their community is going to be a really big part of replicating what we now can't do in a door-to-door environment, and possibly even like better. So I think that trying to find creative ways to get your supporters to start reaching out to their networks is going to be really important. We talk about this in our candidate fundraising work, where we talk about Rolodexing yourself. So looking at your community, looking at everyone that you know that's in your circle, and asking them for money. But you could also have your like key supporters or your kitchen cabinet do the same thing, and then ask those people to get involved in the campaign. Ask them to just tell them about what you're doing with the campaign, and maybe you give them pre-formatted emails and you say, hey, can you send this to 10 friends that live in our district that you think might want to learn about the campaign? It's not like the most creative idea, but it's probably one of the more impactful ones that people can do right now. And maybe pick up the phone, talk to your friends, tell them about what we're doing here. So I think that is going to be really important. And then in terms of like really creative fun things, I've seen people do a wild variety of different types of virtual events right now. A candidate who's a teacher, reading stories to people, to kids, having sort of a 20-minute story time for kids, because that's part of her personal story. So it really is a valuable way to communicate and demonstrate the kind of person that she is and why that person should be elected. I saw that. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, one of the things we've been telling people is in advance of phone banks and text banks, having like a virtual call with all of those people on video so that people can see each other's faces and feel like they're replicating that in-person experience. And then kicking it off, having the candidate come in, maybe a special speaker, and getting people pumped up so that it's not just like, hey, the phone lines are open, hop on in, but it really feels more like an experience that people get to be a part of.
Great. Okay, I think we only have time for one more. We're already over time, unfortunately, but I think this is a great closing question. How do you suggest someone whose campaign is at the very early stages of digital gets started?
That's a great question. I would say one of the first things you're going to have to do is start building your audience and building your lists. So, you know, you can post a ton, but if you don't have people on your platforms, you're just going to be speaking to the 12 people that know you. So a big part of it the initial parts of your campaign are building out your audiences. So asking, again, doing the same thing with your kitchen cabinet, asking them to talk about you, to forward your message to their friends, to get people to sign up. That's going to be a really important part. And then I would also say is, again, going back to that content calendar idea, is sort of mapping out the overall strategy of what you're going to want your digital campaign to look like. Because often people get really overwhelmed right at the beginning because they think, oh, I have to write something like every day and I'm going to be up at 3 a.m. writing tweets because no one else is. So especially if you're at the early stages, it can be kind of nice to have a bit of time to do more advanced planning so that you feel more confident when you're going in. So I would say building out that content calendar, thinking through those buckets and making sure you know what you're going to do, and then diving in will be really helpful in terms of that confidence.
Great. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, I'm sorry we couldn't get to more questions, but we will have a lot more resources coming your way in the future. So just stay in touch with Run to Win. Email us your questions, and we will keep trying to answer them on all of our channels. So our key takeaways: your digital program needs to reflect your campaign goals. So you know, if you're spending a ton of time posting memes that don't get people to take action, maybe that's a question where you ask yourself, is this helping me win votes? Is this helping me earn money? Is this, mobilizing my supporters in some way? And if you can't say yes, then maybe you need to sort of think through again, what are my goals? What is my program? And how are those two things related? End of the line, you need, like, the bottom line resources that you absolutely need to have are a website with a donate button, and a way to process donations online, an email program, a Facebook, and a Twitter. I would say Twitter you could not have if you're a really small campaign. So I would maybe make that one a flex, but definitely a Facebook. And finally, I just want to reiterate that I think digital, this is a really complicated and stressful time, but digital is capable of allowing you to do real political engagement despite our changing environment. And there's a lot out there that you can do. So experiment, dive in, try new things. And I think you'll find that you're able to do a lot of what you wanted to do a month ago. So again, I just wanted to plug the training center. There's a lot of really great resources. This is our sort of online platform to teach you how to run for office. It's trainingscenter.emilyslist.org. And this will also be in our follow-up email. But we are adding lessons as fast as we can, especially in the digital category. But there's courses in fundraising, communications, digital, that go into a lot more depth than we were able to hit here. So if you're looking for more resources, I would suggest heading over there. And we also have an amazing Facebook community of women that are running for office that can help you, that if you'll also see in that follow-up email. So great, I think I'm gonna send it back to Alyssa to end this webinar.
Yes, hello. Thank you all for your time. Sorry for going over, but I hope that you all got a lot of very interesting and useful information. There's a lot to the internet. I just really want to thank our partners on this training and all of our trainings, and also let you know that we are going to be running a series of trainings on digital tactics and skills over the next month or so. So we will send out as many registration links as we can lock in as part of the follow-up to this training, and we are excited to see you all there to build out your texting programs, your digital ads programs, your virtual events, and all the things that you need to do to be successful right now. So again, thank you guys so much. Take care of yourselves and stay safe out there.
Thanks, everybody.